crown is heavy for Faker indeed, meaning everyone wants to take him down, especially G2 today, because one of these two teams will book their ticket to Paris, and then BLG will take on PSG, and the loser has to go home. It is the 7th day of the Swiss stage here in Berlin, Germany, and I want to say because it is in Germany and in Europe, there is so much excitement because of what happened in 2019. As we see G2 and T1 in our studio, I mean, my name is Shox. Can you tell I'm excited? And I'm here with Dracos and Emily to lead us through the best of threes today.
And it's G2 T1 day! Let's just make it a regular thing. Just build it into the format. We get it so often. It's my favorite part every time at every international tournament other than the finals. It's just going to be such a good day.
And no matter where your allegiance lies, I think you're not a League of Legends fan if you're not excited about T1 versus G2 and kind of the best East versus West matchup we've had throughout the years, Em.
Yeah, it's not even, like, for me, it's not even about East versus West, but it's about having some sort of really great international rivalry between two storied organizations, right? Like, for a lot of people, T1 is the LCK, G2 is the LEC, and they've met each other so many times on the international stage.
And G2's modern international reputation is built on beating T1. Yes, they've taken down other teams, but their rise to glory in 2019 and that reputation that they've held onto is all because of the series that they've beaten or been close to T1 in.
Yeah, and I mean, I know when you look at this, you might think, well, it's only really here that 2019 we have to be super excited about, but that would be disingenuous to some of the series they've even played this year at MSI, right? So there's always that hope that's going to be incredibly, incredibly close. And since there is such a storied rivalry between the two, I did want to take a look at some of the most important resources we have in LoL Esports. The most popular Reddit comments we've had across the year. So basically, I'm going to show you both a Reddit comment, and it's pertaining to one of these matches that they played versus each other, and you just need to guess which match it is from. You get it?
Yeah.
I'm ready to run it down. Let's go.
All right. So, here we go. SKT. Oh. SKT and G2 battle for the final playoff spot. Man, what a time to be alive.
Final playoff spot.
Final playoff.
Yeah. Is that being trickstered?
Well, are we being, because the problem is sometimes Reddit just says stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Right? It's just like,
but also the SKT is throwing me too because
it's old.
That didn't happen until like post 2019.
I think we have to guess. I'm gonna say I'm gonna say 2017 final playoff spot. I'm gonna say 2017 group stage MSI.
Yeah, that's actually my guess too. Oh wait, I'm gonna go 2019.
3, 2, 1.
2019 group stage?
Group stage?
MSI. Yeah. I don't know why.
Oh my gosh, can this? I have your face, Emily, I swear. Here we go.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see the answer.
What is the actual
The answer is 2016 MSI
we both
group
trolled.
stage.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a flip. Like,
yeah.
Okay, next one.
Yeah.
I got the one in our pre-show, and I'm not going to get another one after that.
No one saw it. It doesn't count. It's
I know.
Next, okay, it's a whole chain.
So this is SKT.
Yes, again, SKT. Maybe this is on purpose by production, right? That they say, now that you think it's SKT era.
Give SKT an inch, they take a mile. Give G2 an inch, they give you 2 towers for Rift Herald.
Oh, no.
No, I think we're going 2017.
Yeah.
I'm guessing 2017 finals would be my guess. Because from what I remember, that was insanely one-sided.
What do you say, Dracos?
2017 MSI finals.
Okay. In Brazil.
I'm also there, yeah.
Okay. With Emily
I
there
think
as well.
the beardiest photo of me we have.
Yeah, oh, mine is just like heinous, so it's
You can
fine.
give the answer. It is 2017 MSI group
Okay.
stage.
What is with
Let's
these
go.
old
0
hits?
for 2.
I'm having trouble clearing
The problem is
screen, but I'm
SKT is
tallying,
it's so
don't
hard
worry.
because it's not really like, yeah, it's like,
The
yes, they're
SKT kind
all
of
we
gives
have
us
is
hints,
the name
but
and the fact that they're beating G2, but that's all of 2016 and 2017. Like, none of it looked good.
Yeah.
Good point. Let's get to our next one.
All right, what are we cooking?
Guys, SKT got Baron. We win game now. But it says LEC.
If you get one of LEC's best mids, he has a 50% chance to carry. That's why you get 2. Okay, so we're in 2019 territory.
Yeah.
Yes. It also still mentions he who shall not be named. So it's all context clues.
Wow.
Context clues.
I'm going to say...
Seriously, this is amazing. They gave up almost all objectives for more map. What?
Wait. Is this... But could this be the one where, like, T1 started Baron, but then G2 finished it. Remember that game?
No. I think this is MSI for sure, just because people seem surprised. I think people are surprised.
I'm gonna go.
People weren't surprised at Worlds when G2 did Worlds. That was the 1 year we came into Worlds with ego.
I already guessed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I already guessed it for MSI, but I'm going MSI
That's
again.
okay.
MSI semifinals.
MSI semifinals 2019. World semifinals.
We had Cloud then. Why are people doubting? Why are people surprised?
I don't know.
We weren't favorites maybe, but that was a close. Why? Oh, man.
Okay.
Reddit is full of red herrings. That's all I'll say.
It's true.
Oh,
we knew that.
I did get the question in pre-show.
After that very serious rundown of the history between these two orgs, let's take a more serious look back at the history of G2 versus T1.
Today's featured matchup, presented by Mercedes-Benz, is a look at the greatest East versus West rivalry in League history. G2 versus T1. For years, T1 was seen as the unkillable gods of League, led by the Demon King himself. They were untouchable, and even Europe's promising new champions could not make a dent in their armor.
Oh, that is absolutely sick. What? That's just disgusting.
I can't see him walk back.
But after reaching Worlds Finals in 2018 with Fnatic, Caps shocked European LoL Esports by transferring to G2, ushering in a new era of European dominance and changing the landscape of this rivalry forever. Even with domestic success, European fans had muted aspirations on the international stage. It was rare for LEC teams to take games over the LCK and LPL, let alone win an entire best-of-5 series. Misfits taking T1 to 5 games during the 2017 Worlds quarterfinal was still seen as one of Europe's greatest moments. So when G2 entered the Rift opposite T1 at the MSI 2019 semi-final, few fans predicted a victory against the 3-time world champions. But instead, they were treated to one of the greatest, most intense series in MSI history.
Caps is trying to find the kill. Mata's in trouble. Faker's low, but they've already got one onto Mata. Where is Teddy? Follow his HP bar. That's a dunk from Wonder. Death from below. For the double, for the ace, for the Baron, and the base.
G2 beating T1 shook the League world, and they continued on to win the tournament and claim the first international title for a Western team since Season 1. Fans started to believe that maybe the gap between East and West was closing, and Worlds that year validated those feelings. G2 took down T1 once again.
The greatest team in the history of League of Legends, taken down by the greatest team Europe has ever produced.
But this time on European soil in front of the home crowd, earning themselves a spot in the 2019 World Finals. But 2022 saw the introduction of a new era for T1. Faker still captained the team, but now guided a younger roster of upcoming LCK stars. They dominated G2 on the international stage at MSI that year, and ultimately went on to compete in the World Final. They fell short, but returned to lift the Summoners Cup just a year later in 2023, proving once again that T1 is the most legendary organization in the world of League of Legends.
Here comes him, and he's still alive! What is going on? Faker Tiny's under burst! Everyone's just exploding!
Meanwhile, for G2, 2022 and the MSI series versus T1 was a wake-up call. Since their World Final appearance in 2019, the gap seemed to have widened and had now been cemented by this loss against T1.
No flash for Oner, but the Cataclysm Mikyx locks him up. Oner shut out!
So it seemed fate then, that fans would see more of the same when G2 first met T1 at MSI this year.
A clean ace for G2!
Here was G2, who had no recent international success, facing up against the literal world champion gods of T1. All G2 could hope for was to put a good foot forward, but once again, fans everywhere were treated to another banger 5-game series for the history.
G2, this was the day they almost beat T1! For T1, it's just another Friday!
Who would you want to play the most?
I mean, T1 would be fun, right?
These two teams represent the successes and failures of their regions, the beating hearts of the LEC and LCK. And today they take to the Rift once more, for pride, for glory, and to earn their spot in the 2024 Worlds quarterfinals.
Unbelievable video. Incredible job, Medic, for a ticket to Paris, just like in 2019. We saw a lot of Caps versus Faker in that video, and I think you have to mention it because they are so much the centerpiece of the respective journeys of their teams since then, and again now. Also for a little hopium, in series, Caps leads 5-4 versus Faker. In games, Faker leads 13-11.
I mean, series are how you win international events, so we'll take it. But I think it's important to note, while these guys are the beating hearts of both their organization, G2 are still incredibly reliant on Caps to be that big carry. And in contrast, Faker's surrounded by a T1 team that, while he stepped up, certainly stepped up at Worlds in these big moments, they don't always need him to be that centerpiece. And that's going to be a really big contrast on what teams need from both these respective players.
Absolutely. I do also want to talk about the top lane just a little bit, Emily. I feel like BrokenBlade has gone through such a journey, and we know that so much has been focused on international performance specifically. And knowing that Zeus is on the other side, I think that is definitely something to look out for.
Yeah, I'm super curious to see, again, if these two teams are going to swap. The thing that was most impressive to me with BrokenBlade thus far is I really loved, in particular, his lead that he was able to get in the Weibo series specifically, because this sets up this entire composition that they have with the Galio, Nocturne, Ori up for success when he gets that lead right off the bat.
And I think when you look at G2's domestic performance, weak early games was always the criticism. So when you have a player that's going to step up and build a lead in a 1v1 matchup that you should not be able to do at this level, that is incredible for G2.
You might wonder, why do we have two pictures of T1 behind us? Well, it kind of shows very well how they are experts at glowing up for fall and winter, where most people do it for summer. For T1, whenever they come into Worlds, they just look much better, Emily.
Yeah, really quick, I just wanted to do a check-in on T1, because even as late as their series against K2 Roster to qualify here, they looked really uncoordinated at times. They looked a little bit lost in draft. They weren't able to necessarily get Faker on stuff that he was really comfortable on. And I think looking at coming out of this, their performance thus far, very small sample size, but I mean, they're kind of major draft sinners a lot of the times in drafting like these hard forcing bot lanes, but I feel like with the Nico flex, they've been looking a lot more comfortable on that. They've looked more coordinated. I think they can still work on neutrals and team fights a bit, but the biggest thing is this to me. In that TES game, they actually were able to get a 2K gold lead by 8 minutes off of their early map movements, first turret topside, first blood onto 369. It was so much more well coordinated than anything I saw out of them in their run to get here, where they kind of barely squeaked by KT to make it.
I think it's a massive improvement, and it's a struggle for T1 because they're always judged against the best version of themselves, and the best version of themselves is the best team in the world. It is a huge, huge glow up, but I do think when it comes to contesting the best in the world, there's still a little way to go, but the contrast between those regional qualifiers and today is astounding.
Yeah. You're saying there's a chance?
There's a chance.
There is a chance. I think we saw 8 games of this at MSI, right? And that is what's making me a little bit nervous for G2. Watching it back with my breakfast, I thought there was sour milk in my coffee, because some of these games, you know, and especially that game 5 that they really had it in the palm of their hand for G2. And to think of the fact that T1 is a team that always levels up. They will have looked at that series. So I think it all comes into play today. Let's see what the fans think, because we're always wrong. And the fans are mostly right. They have like an 82%.
I think the fans are usually wrong based on this one. The fans, yeah, we can't trust the fans.
So
I'm not sure these numbers are right. For sure that G2 number should be higher.
Oh, this is so cute.
Okay, I'll give him that. That is very cute. I think G2, this is a tall task. T1 showing proficiency in the early game against a G2 who has not been consistent, who threw leads in their biggest game against HLE. It's a tall task, but if we get to mid to late game on even footing, I have a lot of hope for G2.
Yeah, that's the big thing for me, is how strong are T1 going to be able to come out? How well coordinated are they going to look? And what are they going to lock in? Because like I said, when they draft for comfort, a lot of times it is these early game compositions where they really want to fight you early or push through like a hard 2v2.
And I think the draft is going to be a central point, because when you look at that MSI series, it was all about the unique picks that G2 brought to the table, the Rek'Sai, the Zac, the Poppy. Do they have another creative angle today? Because we saw what happens when that angle was removed. That was the second best of 5 series where they got 3-0. So hoping for a little bit of that draft creativity as well to give G2 an early game edge they might not otherwise have.
2 games of that. 3 wins were close. Yeah. Okay, they're really close. Anyways, what a day we had to have ahead of them. Absolute glory waiting for T1 or for G2. MSI will be in the back of G2's heads, and they will know what happened when they were in the 2-2 match last year at Worlds. They want to erase that blemish completely, and they want to beat T1. But T1 and Faker want to show that they are still on top of the world.
Match point for T1.
The question is, can they finish it right now, right here?
작년에 우승했을 때 제일 먼저 들었던 생각은
Xiaohu now taking a whole lot of damage, and Faker is in the shroud. He's toying with him. It's a double kill as he backflips away and back in again. It's a triple for Faker.
팬분들을 기쁘게 해줄 수 있어서 즐겁다는 생각이었고
To be back in Europe, it's amazing. We have all the crowd supporting us. Definitely feels like we are on our home ground right now.
Last Worlds, I remember when we dropped out, I was feeling so sad. We were all feeling so sad.
The last vestige of the LEC is wiped from Worlds 2023.
We really believe that we could achieve really amazing thing. We have another chance now. We're getting closer and closer.
They beat G2 again. Twice in the same tournament, proving they are the better squad.
We need to take our revenge, and I think we can.
이번 뮤비 제목이 Heaven is Crown인데 사실 옆에서 봤을 때 그런 무게감이나 자리에 대한 압박감이 클 텐데도 그 자리를 계속 지켜내려고 하고 노력하는 모습이 멋진 것 같습니다. 그 왕관을 같이 지키기 위해서 최선을 다하겠습니다.
If I win this match, then this will be my ticket to go home. Of course, I'm gonna take it.
如果说我们实力真的很强的话，我们可能不会1杠2的吧。
T1 takedown BLG, sealing the fate of the first seed of the LPL.
现在实力的话，可能只展示了50%都不到吧。
Betty a dead man walking.
现在我们已经是1杠2了，但是这种压力就是自己要想办法去承受。那你扛住了压力，晋级了之后你就会变得更强。但是你扛不住压力，那我们可能就是没有办法成为有办法进8强的队伍。
我觉得以我们现在的状态，我们应该是走一步看一步嘛。毕竟先调好当前是最重要的。
如果我们再输一场就会结束嘛，那我们肯定是压力是会有点大，但我们会把这个压力好好的掌握住。
我觉得质疑我们没有关系吧，就是我们会自己一步一步再证明自己的吧，然后证明我们是 LPL 1号种子。对。
上去虐一下。
Welcome back to Worlds 2024, where we are here for a momentous day as we kick off with T1 taking on G2 and then follow up with BLG versus PSG. I'm Medic, I'm joined by Dagda and Kobe on the cast, and I cannot express how hype it is to be here today.
It's so sick! I'm so ready for these games, man. The second I saw this on the docket, I think everyone looked at each other going, this is the series to watch. Yeah, very rarely in international play do we get to have rivalries really built up because it's hard to keep drawing your opponent. But both of our series today are redraws, so it's really fun to kind of continue the stories.
Yeah, obviously BLG playing up against PSG back at MSI, G2 and T1 had the same happen to them. It was very close in the first series, not so close in the second. T1 took that 3-0, and now we sit in the 2-1 matches. The winner of this goes to Paris, goes to quarterfinals, and gets to battle in the capital city of France.
But the last time we were in Europe was 2019, and that worked out pretty well for G2, beating them in both MSI and Worlds, but it is a different beast that we're looking at here today for T1, so definitely an uphill battle for G2.
It certainly is, and that's a good point, coming into this series, that the groundwork does need to be laid here. For both of these teams, in my opinion, it was a very different look coming into this tournament. Neither team really looking at their peak. T1 struggle is obviously well documented in summer, but for me, G2 as well, even though they did end up winning, a lot of the early games looking quite sluggish, having to come back in a lot of the games, and so it has been nice to see here at Worlds so far, even in the few games that we have seen really early on, that each of them have truly embraced their own metas and really started to improve on a lot of those issues from summer.
And that's why someone I think who's really stepped up for T1 is Oner. He has been fantastic in their games, and specifically on things like the Vi. So I was wondering if we would get a Vi ban, but we're not going to see it. Instead, it's going to be the Renata and Kalista Braum taken away. So immediately, still an Orianna open available for Caps if he wants to go towards that.
And I kind of like that from G2, because one thing that T1 have done, they've stayed true to Guma and Keria wanting to play really heavy attack bottom lanes, really aggressive, double range bottom lanes in multiple games there. Plus G2, we already saw the Orianna Nocturne combination. It was beautiful, but Nocturne has been demonstrated to work with so many other champions. Genji, of course, using with all kinds of other things, the Ahri, the Aurora, even the Twitch. So the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think of Nocturne as only this champion that goes in, but you have to think about turning off the lights in a team fight and how impactful that can be. We talked a lot backstage, Dagda. You were pontificating on, if you leave the Nocturne up, will we see the Orianna immediately picked up by T1? But instead, it's the Ahri here for Faker.
And that's what I thought we'd see, is the Orianna taken away, and then you'd have some adaptation for something like a Nico or something like that coming through for Caps to try and facilitate alongside the lights being switched off. But they're going to go back towards an Ahri Skarner, which I'm not a big fan of, because I think it lacks a lot of damage in that mid lane. But it does mean that you're going to be relying on someone like Gumayusi to come out with something like a Kaisa or something along these lines to really be that damage dealer for the mid game and facilitate this low damage mid jungle combo.
And the biggest thing to me is for T1 is almost always Zeus, and I'm very happy that he's on red side. So you're like, oh, okay, they got a Skarner jungle, they're gonna have some tank there, but Zeus having basically guaranteed counter pick possibility for him, I think is huge for T1, since to me, BrokenBlade has really become such a big force for G2, and his flexibility was one of the biggest tools that they used, the Galio counter pick into the Rumble and whatnot, but in this game, he's probably gonna be forced to blind.
I think it's also curious if you end up leaving the counter pick for Keria, right? Because I think he has been fantastic in that role where he's been able to get that R5 counter pick, bring out some unusual supports like the Nico and that, and then try and terrorize you through that. So maybe that's it, but with the Jax now locked in, potential here to just take that counter pick immediately for Zeus.
Exactly. Now you can counter pick with both roles. Best of both worlds. Let's see what they decide to lock in early here before the second round of protection bans come in.
Jax is something BrokenBlade's relatively comfortable on, his fifth most played. Gragas is going to be the lock. This is a long-term known counter pick into the top lane. If the Jax ever tries to jump in, you just body slam him away. You can also out-sustain him in a lot of matchups.
And I have a fun fact, because I was just looking at Zeus' stats, and I was scrolling down, and Gragas is one of his top 10 most played, and it is the highest win rate within that top 10 pack at 83.3% win rate, career long for him. Not only is it a very well-known pick into Jax because of the body slam, because you can keep Jax at a distance and deal with the counter-strike, but also it is one of his highest win rate champs.
Yeah, I mean, he's been absolutely exceptional when he gets hands on it. I think when you're looking at a combo that is definitely, hey, we want to jump in on top of you with Nocturne, with Jax, with more than likely another engaged support for Mikyx, having that disengage off the cast is going to be so important, and you can already see they're banning away a lot of those immediately. One on the Rel side, but on the opposite side, a lot of that anti-dive for the AD carries. The Xayah gone. I wouldn't be surprised with an Ezreal to be taken off the board here as well.
Kaisa removed by T1, so we're not going to see Gumayusi on that in the bot lane.
Yeah, I think this is the setup for the Ezreal pick. Kaisa kind of your traditional counter to that. And Ezreal at least has 2 dashes that he can try and avoid some of this engage, although it is still difficult. So I wouldn't be surprised with the Ezreal here. Keep the counter pick then for Keria on R5 and see how it goes. But I'm not a fan of this one.
I think Gragas gives you a little bit of damage. You can run Storm Surge Gragas as well if you want. So often when we see Ahri Jhin, the question is where's the damage coming from in that composition? Gragas gives you a little bit of it. Also, Jhin does give you good control around team fights.
when I've seen BLG basically run this exact same comp against T1, it was that lack of damage because you don't oftentimes have your top side with you when you're trying to play off of side lanes and that. And I think that's where you're really going to struggle here as T1 is in this core that's supposed to work around early Void Grubs and dragging up.
Draven! It's Hans' Draven!
Let's go!
Oh, we talked about this so much. We were like, you can't really pick the Kalista early because the Draven might get locked in here. Hans laying down the gauntlet against Gumayusi. Hans, his Draven was so well known. He was a solo queue terror on it before he even joined Misfits and Rogue, and then every now and again we get to see it pop up for him.
And there's so little backline threat from here as well. Sure, there's a cask, but in the grand scheme of things, you should be fine to try and hide behind a lot of your setup here as the Draven. Now with the Nautilus locked in as well, this is a pure aggro bot lane.
And I love going for this when you have the first pick Nocturne guaranteed already, because you're talking about hiding, and Nocturne will just turn off the lights and you get to go so aggressive with your positioning on top of that. So lots of dive here. And how is Guma going to get to play this game? There is a Orianna Nocturne that's always going to look for him because Faker's going to play Ahri, and Ahri has her own dashes. Plus, you're going to have a Nautilus casting Nautilus ult on you. It's like Guma does not get to play.
And that's the big problem for T1 here. You see how much dive there is from G2. I love the fact they've decided to go for this all-in composition. It's taking the fight to T1. T1, on the other hand, do have good disengage, and if a fight gets disengaged, Jhin can start to rain hell. Ahri's dashing around the fight. You have the Gragas ultimate as well to split it up. It feels like T1 in multiple small skirmishes might be able to win as opposed to a full-on 5v5.
Yeah, I think it is still a little tough because I think G2 did a good job of getting rid of a lot of these anti-dive tools like the Renat and the Timecode, right? So sure, you've got some fight back with the Ahri and the Gragas, but you still at some point have to turn around and fight, and then you're running into things like a Draven and that. So I think G2 definitely on paper have a good start. It's just about can they have a good early game to facilitate that.
And I will say, T1, they have had some good early games, and they have a lot of pick potential on their side as well. If you're looking at things that will make it difficult for Hans to play, Leona ultimates, Zeus very, very good Gragas, and Skarner, it's not the same as a Nocturne, but you can go through walls. And something interesting about Skarner in lane swaps, it gives you a lot more options than junglers usually have. Usually junglers kind of go to sleep in lane swaps and just go for jungle camps, but Skarner does have a lot more angles to surprise people from, so very interested to see the setup here.
For the third time this year, we see T1 and G2 go on to the Rift in a series. In Chengdu, it all came out in T1's favor. Here, the European fans behind them. Can G2 make it third time lucky? Onto the Rift we go. You talked a little bit about the possibility of a lane swap for this Skarner. Do you think, looking at the compositions, we're likely to see one?
I mean, if you want to get away from a Draven Nautilus, then there's definitely a possibility there. Doesn't look like very early on anybody's going to make a move for it. And honestly, I want to see these two bottom lanes fight it out anyway. So I'd be happy with that situation. Going to have a little bit of a movement now, though. You see him already starting to shift.
Yeah, I think the only downside for Mikyx is that you're definitely playing a more passive version of the bot lane matchup thanks to supports. Like, Nautilus wants to try and hook Keria out of the Zenith Blade and set them up, but we'll have to see how they're going to try and play that one out.
That was an interesting cover. They were kind of expecting a little delayed invade there.
Oh, Mikyx, Keria's there. Mikyx tries to dredge line away. The charm moots him in place, and I don't think Mikyx needs to burn the flash here. He knows he's done for. First blood to T1.
And I really think G2 actually had the slight read on this. They thought that there was going to be a delayed invade. That's why BrokenBlade actually hovered over by Raptor camp, but then they felt like it had been too long and T1 wasn't still going to go for it, but T1, they just upset them with the timing.
It was actually something that happened in game one of the first best of 5 at MSI. Faker got caught out moving around toward that Razor Beaks to get the ward in that he so often does. Here, G2 read T1, but T1 read G2 reading T1. And they just out-mind game them here. Mikyx will get back to the lane, didn't burn either of his summoners, but that first blood going over to Gumayusi is so impactful for the lane if you can go back and spend that money.
Yeah, even the fact that you just get push allows you to so easily do that, now that you have that advantage as well, with Hans Sama being late to the lane, so you get to reset, set things up a little earlier. And as I was talking about, the fact that you have the Leona here actually makes this the more aggressive lane for Gumayusi, because he can look to play on that not only item lead, but the fact he has the barrier as well gives him a lot more trading power in the potential all-in. So I think if Oner is able to get down here off of the resets, I think T1 could look to punish further the G2 bot lane.
And if you look at those junglers, Yike is the one clearing down towards the bottom side, but Oner's going to make a quick move over here because they know that they were able to sweep out Mikyx's ward, and he's got a path towards Caps.
Caps been trying to pressure Faker in the mid lane. In comes Oner, just wide. Caps able to sidestep it, but might have to burn the flash to get away from the charm. It misses too! Caps with the fancy feet.
So smart from him, dodging towards Faker, even though Oner coming behind him, and it's a little bit dangerous going towards the Ahri. He's able to avoid both of them, sidesteps the Skarner as well as the charm.
Just nice job hiding in front of the minions as well, constantly sidestepping so that then you're always having some body block in front of Faker. And now, that kind of alleviates a lot of that pressure for Caps in the mid lane. Plus, when you look at the Yike, he just continue to farm up, so he'll get a bit of a quicker reset off and can be back on the map first.
That battle in the mid lane is one we have to keep our eyes on. Obviously, both of these players just exemplary when it comes to mage play, but at MSI, it was Caps who kind of got out on top of it, apart from a couple of great plays from Faker. Across the course of their history, you can see Caps actually has the advantage in terms of series, but Faker always comes up in terms of games.
And if you're looking at this year, leading up to this tournament, people probably would favor Caps individually. I think another thing that Gank does in mid, of course, is show Oner cleared bottom side to top side, like guaranteed. They for sure know it. So now it should be very easy for G2 to play around Oner's positioning. Already, Yike was able to steal away top Scuttle Crab because of the mid lane gank. And now Caps just has to hover down to the bottom side.
Faker, Charm Flash, always a possibility. Caps gets Charm, Yike's on his way as well. There's the edge of Ishtal, but doesn't get the stun into the wall. Faker forced low. Oner walking away as well. Caps didn't burn anything again, and the gank is low HP.
And it's a really nice job here in the early stages from Yike. He gets the top crab, immediately move bot, gets bot one, covers there on the mid play for Caps too. And now you're in a position where you've a bit of a nice 8 CS lead for yourself.
Zenith played in. Keria's going to have to flash away. Hans Summer, one more adoration for Hans Summer on his Draven.
Draven cashes in! Even though Mikyx went down in the level 1, Hans Summer gets paid here. That's quite nice. That's really going to even up this bottom lane. Let's see what they're going to get on their timers back here, because Dragon also back out on the map, and then you're already looking a minute ahead of time for the grub swap.
Yeah, very messy sort of skirmish there in the bot lane, but the important thing for Hans Summer on this Draven is he is building up those passive stacks, and if you get a kill without dying, you get that extra influx of gold. You can see he's 50 gold ahead right now, but you have to remember Gumayusi had first blood, so technically he should be ahead if the CS is even.
Yeah, and I think it's just a really nice job here from the G2 bot lane to be able to turn it down. You get the route on towards Keria, who didn't have the aftershock in the engage, so Hans Summer is just able to follow up and get that damage down. And when you think back to when G2 were considered the strongest early game team in the LEC back last year, it was this Draven that so often they would play around and get these big leads, and able to punish T1 on this bottom side and getting this Draven off to a BF sword start in this bottom lane.
And then there's the swap for Grubs immediately. Duo lane going up towards the top side. BrokenBlade wants to try and push a little bit first.
I mean, Zeus has Flash, has the explosive cast. Hans has both his summoners as well, but Hans Summer continues to put axes into the back of Zeus. The cleanse away from Hans, flashes forward. Zeus flashes away, will get the slow with the cask. Hans now in the middle of the minions, doesn't have a ward to place. Zeus can open up and Zeus finds it. A solo kill for the Gragas. Meanwhile, in the top lane, a hook's going to land onto Oner. BrokenBlade looking for the stun. Root goes down as Yike, Mickey, and BrokenBlade disengage.
Love that play from Zeus. He lures Hans Summer in, trying to play off of the Draven ego that all Draven players do have. And again, coming into this game, Zeus has a 20-4 record on Gragas. Nice little punish there, but G2 still going to get those topside grubs.
I think the important thing for Hans Summer is, although he burned his flash and his cleanse, Gumayusi had to do the same on the other side of the map. So it's not just he's expended his resources with nothing happening to his enemy AD carry.
I think the play on towards the top side though really helped out G2 obviously, because they do force T1 away, which then gives them void grubs. Traditionally when we see the AD carry swap and you don't move your Draven up towards the top end, it becomes very easy for T1 to outnumber and outdamage you in these early stages. But not having the Draven there still worked out for G2 just off of being able to push T1 away.
And we see that classical exchange, grubs for Drake. As you say, G2 did a good job of getting the prio in the top lane to make sure the grubs were a safe bet, but T1 will happily accept a Cloud Drake for themselves. Most of the action has been around our bot laners so far, but perhaps Zeus here, no flash, does have the explosive cast coming back off cooldown in a second, and as soon as you see Keria, you call off this dive.
Good read from both Keria and G2, spotting that Keria was up there. BrokenBlade now trying to force Oner away, but I think it's more of a bluff than anything else. I don't think you want to over-aggress onto that, as Cap's completely out of man in the mid lane, and you had the Gumayusi hitting level 6 on that bot side.
I think the grub buff really is going to be critical in this game too, because both of these teams do have so many ways to pick off people in the side lane. So if you can get the towers down quicker, then you're going to open yourselves up to snowball very quickly with, you know, these compositions having some of the similar goals. So next spawn of Void Grubs is going to be a banger, boys.
Yeah, that's the important thing. It's the breakpoints at 4 and 6 grubs, right? So the expectation is in about 2 minutes, 40 seconds, we will see G2 and T1 making sure they have their top sides prepped and looking for that fight. At the moment, BrokenBlade matching into Gumayusi is having a bit of a struggle here, trying to get as much farm as he can, but he knows he's on the weak side of the map. You can see T1 have wards in the river, one towards the Razorbeaks, where BrokenBlade has no vision of any approaching enemies.
Yeah, I think as well the fact that Zeus has his TP available is kind of why we're seeing G2 opt into these transferred lanes, because you don't want to have a moment where Oner could potentially play up, have a gank on towards BrokenBlade, you then have Zeus TP back in, you can get a little bit of more of an advantage for this Gragas, who's already up a nice little bit of CS lead, or CS and gold lead, thanks to that early kill. So G2 at least trying to minimize where the summoner spell advantages are for T1 on the map right now.
Keep currently hovering around Caps in the mid lane. Faker and Keria will do the same. This mid lane priority can be very important. Neither of the mid laners have their teleports. Faker's on a slightly longer cooldown than Caps, because he used it slightly later into the game. Mikyx has worked his way all the way up towards topside here, but Zeus already starting to back away. Realizes that he doesn't have too many friends in the vicinity.
Yeah, I think for G2, what they're looking at is trying to get the flashback up for Hansama, so ahead of this Void Grub fight that is inevitably going to come, but you are going to have the flash for Zeus back up. Gumayusi should be just around the corner as well. So as Kobe was already saying, I think this is going to be an absolute barn burner of his crap. And with the rotations already coming through for Zeus moving up here, I thought they might actually try and transition him down to the bottom side so he can TP up to the fight if necessary, but it may be T1 looking to say Zeus can have more of an impact than Gumayusi in this first skirmish, thanks to the early gold and the fact you've got so much CC in the kit for the Gragas.
And we may get to see our first, attempted execution of a Nocturne Orianna combo. That is going to be, one of the opportunities here if you're able to draw them over first. As you can see, they're all very early trying to get some extra vision. Mid-prowl turns into vision towards that setup, and Oner already into the river.
They are sending Faker at bot lane. He doesn't have the teleport, so T1 I think need to make some sort of play beforehand to deny the 4v5, and that BrokenBlade could potentially TP into. So they're a little bit late on the resets here for T1.
You can always go with the strat of saying, hey, maybe we won't deny you the 4 grub buff, but we'll at least steal away one with a smite for Oner, especially with Skarner, a champion that can go through the walls and get out pretty easily, because Yike's not going to be able to smite all 3 of them. So if you kind of put some pressure there, but now we have the reset. So Faker already back to base, Lucidity, boots, and heading out for it.
But they are late. I mean, 5 seconds now in the Void Grubs, and you've got push in top, you're pushing bot. So BrokenBlade gets the plates, and you're in position as G2 first. I think T1 have fumbled this a little bit.
G2 will start up the grubs. T1 are looking for a Barney. They're looking for a fight here. Mikyx looking for that hook. Oner stepping forward, eats an axe. Caps and Mikyx standing around the side. Caps low mana. They go into Keria. Paranoia. There's the shockwave as well. Meanwhile, in the bottom, BrokenBlade's going to look to try and keep Zeus around. One already over as Yike kills off Keria. Oner's killed Caps though. And now Yike has to run from Faker and Gumayusi. Oner's so low in the pit. He gets 2. Hansama will answer with 1. Cleanses away, but he's not going to be able to get too much more here. He can get a second. Gumayusi able to win out the fight in the end. Meanwhile, in the bot lane, much ado about nothing.
Oh man, it seems like Keria is getting blown up so far. The initiation onto him gets him so low that then Yike is able to ult into the backline, take out him, and they did get one of the grubs. So our kind of like first objective for G2 was at least get 1 Void Might spawn, and they did at least acquire that.
But great play from Zeus, right? Because, actually I was about to praise him, but here comes the TP to counter.
BrokenBlade has to flash early, needs to keep himself away from Zeus. That flash body slam combination. Faker has no Spirit Rush, does have the flash, but BrokenBlade will just back all the way under the safety of his tower.
Yeah, so Zeus going all in on the bot side to prevent the TP from BrokenBlade coming in, and this is where, as you said, Keria gets completely blown up, but Gumayusi staying well out of harm's way, and then even the Shockwave not doing a huge amount of damage, but look at the suppression coming through from the Skarner, locking up 2 members of G2, making sure that Caps couldn't have any real follow-up damage. Yike ends up going so far to finish off the initial kill onto Keria, then he can be focused down by Faker and Gumayusi, and Mikyx is just trying his damnedest to help out Hans to a little bit, but it's still Gumayusi who's able to clean up at the back end.
The important thing for Hans on that Draven is he did get a kill before he died, so he gets those adoration stacks again, but you can see it's only a 400 gold lead for him. Now has the Bloodthirster complete as G2 have set up towards the top side, TPing away from bot as well. BrokenBlade giving up the ghost on that tower. Zeus going to get hooked in here. Still has the explosive cask and the flash. It's more Mikyx acting as a distraction as G2 try and rattle their way through this tower. They'll take the second turret of the game, and they continue to push forward here. 5 grubs helping them out quite a lot in taking these towers quickly.
Yeah, and the price, of course, that they are going to pay is not only the push on the opposite side, but the Dragon #2 here for T1, which Oner is able to clean up. Faker does not have teleport.
Already used. Zeus caught out with a counter-strike, though, and Zeus is met with the whirling death. The curtains open, and Summer's so low, but BrokenBlade can tank that up well enough as G2 managed to escape with a kill. Caps is looking for a little bit more, though. Gumayusi has the flash, has the barrier, and I think G2 realize they can't really dive this.
Yeah, but look at the bot side. Faker's completely pushing in. Gumayusi's still looking for more. BrokenBlade gonna have to place a ward so we can hop on out of there. There it is, but as they went for that engage, Mikyx hooked on towards Zeus right as the cast came through, so I think it ended up a little bit more wonky than expected, but T1 are picking up so much on the map.
Yeah, I think the calls from T1 in response to that commitment from G2 were very, very good. T1 did not panic at all. They also did not over-allocate resources. They only had 3 people to defend under the dive, and they're like, it's fine if you kill someone, we're gonna get a return kill and stop your 5-person push. And they just had Oner, instead of coming to try and trap, he just pushed mid lane as well, so not only Faker pushing bottom lane, but also getting that push there. It's these small things.
Caps locked against the wall, but knows there's no one else in the vicinity to really be a threat. The game's so even
That's
so
what I was about
far.
to say.
14 minutes in.
To 7 plates. A lot of the top side objectives going to G2. Dragons for T1. Rift Herald started by T1 here, though. Means that they should be able to get that advantage when it comes towards the objectives. And already, with the pressure that you can have with Faker on these side lanes, I think that's where you can transition Faker from side into mid and look to crack open this mid lane structure.
I think this is what we were all hoping to see as well, though. Like, 14.5 minutes in, the gold within 100. The difference between the lanes is, well, top side is winning for T1 and bot side is winning for G2. T1 do have those 2 Drakes in their pocket as Oner secures the Rift Herald as well. There's a possibility of a dive in the bot lane, but diving a Gragas is a very tricky affair. Solar Flare comes out, Mikyx able to walk out of it, only gets slowed up.
Yeah, Keria once again coming for the defense here under towers. T1 has been the priority, and now after resetting with Rift Herald, T1 have a lot of options for themselves. Looks like they're going to try and fight G2 off of this bottom quadrant of the map.
I saw this not work out for DK yesterday. We'll see if T1 have a better affair. Is there to suppress immediately? They lock them in. The shotgun coming out as well as BrokenBlade tries to survive. The tower will dive, but Caps is low. Faker diving forward, the paranoia on him, and Mikyx's going to be the first to pull G2. All hail the retreat. Try to get the hell out of here because T1 are hungry for blood. Faker will find another as T1 find 2 in the bot lane die.
T1 read G2 perfectly. Faker had already moved in towards this bottom side, and the second BrokenBlade leap striked in, Zeus was like, you're all mine. The cask into the blowback and immediately kill him afterwards. Great stuff by T1.
This Zeus Gragas that he has pulled out here looks like he's going to even further improve on his win rate with this champion with how he's playing. He's just been
TP behind. Faker doesn't have flash, doesn't have Spirit Rush. Keria's going to try and keep Caps busy. Oner comes across the wall with the edge of Ishtal. Will get himself to the blast cone in time. Faker's still trying to retreat down towards the bottom side, but he'll get out as well. And all the meanwhile, Zeus just TPs the top lane and takes another tower.
I think the next thing you have to look to for G2 is you're really worried about your mid tower since T1 have the Rift Herald in their pocket. Yep. So T1 just got a bunch of gold off this defense, and look at Zeus. He's so smart. He goes for the knockback plus killing the minions. And there's only 1 melee left, so it's right in the hands of Oner. It's just the coordination here is so nice from T1. They fully reset and they try and punish.
It's also really smart just keeping their damage dealers away from the start of the fight. You can see the shockwave hits 3 people, but it's Oner, Zeus, and Keria, and it's like, who cares? They're tanky enough. So then Faker and Guma come in later and actually start putting the damage down.
And that's where every single fight we've watched, it's been very difficult for G2 to operate with this Orianna Nocturne combo on towards the back line. There, you've got a tower in the way. They don't want to dive too far and completely be separated by the structure. And in the initial team fight over at the second Void Grubs, everyone was clumped up, so they invite all that to be burst on towards the tanks. So T1 are just kind of setting up for these team fights incredibly well and being able to play through, as you say, the damage dealers constantly being safe and a massive threat in these fights.
I think what G2 really need to leverage right now is this Nocturne's ability to pressure the side lanes, because at least the tower did go down in the end, even though it has been a little bit rough in the last sequence of plays for G2, and they're starting to drop a decent amount of gold. They still do have a lot of territory to work with now, and if Yike can get one more level, you actually get a nice range boost on your ultimate, but...
Solar Flare. Yike puts up the shroud. In goes the stinger, and down onto the backline goes Yike. Looking for that paranoia. Mickey knocked in as well. Gumayusi has to flash away. The whirling death coming out from Hansama. And Faker's on the flank. Keria chased out by BrokenBlade. There'll be one. Faker trying to get onto Hansama as well. Lands the charm. Oner's there to help. The cleanse from Hans is not enough. And now it's a 3v4. T1 advancing again. Gumayusi was able to escape. Faker has another Spirit Rush. The charm goes wide. Yike and Caps alongside BrokenBlade able to keep on to their lives right now. Zeus, though, can look for more. BrokenBlade stepping forward into the darkness. Rift Tower pushed in the mid lane. That's going to take the tower. And it's only a Chemdrake. The T1 really care too much about it. G2 realize they can't fight around it anymore, and they'll back towards the bot lane.
The cask again from Zeus, splitting up that fight perfectly in favor of T1. It looked a little dicey for Gumayusi as they had to flash over the wall, but T1, these team fights consistently going their way.
And this one, yeah, Keria gets focused early, but Keria's a little bit of a bait. Track this Leona throughout it. BrokenBlade ends up having to flash to finish him off. But here's a look at that initiation you're talking about.
Yeah, you get the grab on towards Caps again, who just gets caught out. But this looks a little dicey as Gumayusi has to flash away. But it means that there's actually no backline, or front line for Hansama. Zeus immediately goes on him. Faker turns on to him. A late cleanse on towards that charm as well. Means that he can't get the last little bit of damage out. And it's G2. They're getting pulled apart in these fights.
Yeah, we talked a lot about backline threat on Hansama. What T1 are doing so well is having multiple avenues of approach. You can see Faker coming around the back there. You see the initial engage going out from Keria, from Oner, and then they really pincer in on this movement. T1 team fighting absolutely superbly right now.
Yeah, pulled apart and pushed apart with the Gragas ultimate. Actually beautiful stuff there. And again, that did result in multiple objectives because of the Rift Trail that we talked about, you know, getting popped from them as well. So now T1 are in a situation where they're going to have a lot of leverage to actually draw G2 to them. G2 really wanted to be in the position this game where they could actually dictate first before these objectives are coming up, but because of how the last few minutes have gone for them, they're going to have to be reactive and come up with some outplays.
But it's going to be really tough because look at Faker's build. Hasn't gone for your traditional, like, pure control mage. He's gone for this split push build where he's looking at the Lich Bane to say, hey, I can start to take structures very well. I can have a ton of threat on side lanes. And it's basically leveraging the fact that Orianna sucks in the side lane. She does not want to be there. She's incredibly vulnerable. And Faker just saying, cool, well, I'm going to push out everything on the map, making it impossible for G2 to try and play through Orianna Nocturne and just draw, again, G2 further around so T1 can continue to put the pressure on.
And I don't want to like inject false hopium into you guys, but
please do.
In you might need some right now. In situations like this are when I've actually seen G2 shine a lot, you know, when they are forced to come back in creative situations. Oftentimes, they'll say, fine, T1 are going to be efficient, and they're going to play all 3 lanes and close in on us, and G2, like, overload one side with the Orianna and the Nocturne, and the Draven ult comes through, and they just, you know, commit to picking off one of the points for T1, and then they kind of surprise you with being somewhere that's not completely optimal, but then they're able to snowball objectives afterwards and try and fight their way back into the game or come back that way. So maybe they'll get crafty here and pull off something. Yike does have at least his rank 2 ultimate here, give them a little bit more room to play with.
So what you're saying, Kobe, is G2 are so good at playing from behind because they've been behind a lot of the time.
I've seen, yeah, especially in
recently,
summer.
Yeah.
Recently.
I mean, they did really well versus Fnatic.
Yeah.
You know? I think T1 may be a different beast, Kobe. I'm just going to put that one out there.
You take the nameplates off and then you replace them with whatever suits your current
Imagine
state
if you
best.
could do that. Instead of having the actual opponents, you just replace it with like humanoid.
Yeah.
Make it a bit easier for G2. They have had Fnatic's number this year, but T1 have had theirs. 2 series, 2 wins to the LCK number 4 seed, and currently they are looking to make it 1-0 in this third.
Especially because, you know, Dagda is mentioning Faker's build, and Faker's build not only is it very burst heavy, but it's also very far ahead. Oh, never mind.
Into the shockwave, they look for Gumayusi. He doesn't have the flash, and they will find him. Another hook's going to land onto Oner as the chase continues. Zeus coming in with the explosive cast, though, and G2 have to be careful because TB coming in from Faker. Mikyx dodges away from the explosive cast, pulls Keria in. The charm goes wide. Unsummer still cleanses just in case. T1 lose one. It's only Guma down. Mikyx answered in response.
Oh, Kobe, I was meant to say you're a genius. They get the overload on mid, but T1, they respond so well. It ends up being a 1-for-1. Still, Gumayusi off the map. Might set up more.
Faker has flash. You won't want to burn it, obviously. BrokenBlade can just jump across to this wall, trying to dodge away from the charm here. Faker with the Foxfire. Charm goes wide. BrokenBlade won't be having him any more of that action. Pops the Scryers. G2 trying to set up on this top side now. You can see Zeus pushing out bot, but he's got teleport to join a fight that might erupt.
Yeah, G2 actually drew it up pretty cleanly there. They dropped the top wave, the Faker wave, where Ahri was pushing, and they just force on mid, but a little bit too close to the tower in the follow-up, and end up not being able to snowball it as heavily, though they do still get some critical vision around the Baron. Really what you're looking at is a soul very early on in this game in only 30 seconds, and so it becomes very difficult to both keep vision of the Baron, because you know T1 will also rush down that and be happy to give you one dragon, but also keep sight of the soul. So here we go. Now is the real test for G2.
And I think at least the cheat sheet for them in this test is the fact that Hansama has picked up 3 items. You haven't got the Infinity Edge completed for Gumayusi. He's incredibly close to that. So they might have that small advantage when it comes towards the AD carries. Even the 2 items just be completed for Caps means he's quite dangerous when it comes to that Nocturne Orianna combo.
Solar Flare onto Caps. Faker going in with the charm, only hits onto Mikyx. Cut and Call coming out as well. There's the Impale, and Mikyx just dragged in a double counter strike into the shockwave though, and Faker is down. Explosive cast will separate Caps and Hansama from the fight. Zeus on that front line, 3 items strong, and he's trying to use them to their full effect. Oner down to about half HP. Zeus low as well. Hansama trying to open up on Gumayusi, who still has the flash. In the end, a support for mid lane trade.
What a pick from T1 on towards Mikyx. The fact he managed to get him out of the fight means there's very little setup. Doesn't even get to use the ultimate to try and set up, and T1 then get to continue marching forward. It is one back on towards Faker, and G2 feeling they have the damage to fight this.
G2 with no ultimates. BrokenBlade dashing in here, jumping across that wall. Oner, they're trying to smite the Drake. Would be soul for them. Counter-strike from BrokenBlade. Here comes Zeus. Flash, Zenith Braid. They look for the engage onto Hansama, who has to flash away himself. Caps is down to half HP. BrokenBlade jumps across the pit. And now Mikyx's here to bolster the defenses. Faker on his way back doesn't have the teleport. The Drake secured Chem Soul. Now for T1, G2 begin to back away from the fight, realize they don't really want any more of this action. Yike slowed up though, a hook goes down, only onto Oner. Caps knocked back! Zeus finds him! And now Yike's running for the hills, locked up with a captive audience. Yike down 2. It's a Baron on the cards for T1.
G2 took the most dangerous route out of that fight, and T1 were happy to collapse. They're going to be able to move over towards the Baron. I don't think he can go for this as a contest here for G2. Mikyx, yes, has the ultimate available, but it's 5 members of T1, and Faker is fishing for the charm.
Hans has the Whirling Death, maybe looking for a steal across the wall. Faker back. There's a little bit of vision here for G2. That wall just outside of the pit, giving them a sense of what's going on inside it. BrokenBlade looking for the flank. No flash on him, but does have that Grandmaster's Might. Mikyx looking for the engage, but realizes pretty sharpish that he can't go for it. Still charmed up. Spear rush forward by Faker. There's the curtain calls as well, and there's curtains for Mikyx. Keria takes him. And T1 take the Baron. They are in firm control of the game as Hansama's overstepped 2. Hansama's down 2. T1 6k ahead, a soul, a Baron, and maybe more of his BrokenBlade's charmed. And T1 continue to collapse. The jump away from BrokenBlade will keep them safe for a moment, but T1 are knocking on the door.
Dude, Zeus is just the GOAT.
He's MVP, holy moly.
He is such a playmaker. You think of the God of Lightning with him, but, you know, God of the Cakes in this game. Really, really impressive game number 1 here so far for T1, and after the Baron push, already taking mid inhibitor. They have so much money to spend. You have to think it's going to be a quick reset for them and right back out to pushing.
They have so much money and so much time. Still 2 minutes left on that Red Bull Baron power play. They've already got 3.5k off it. Mikyx contributing to the Nautilus Death Thund. Misses the hook as Keria goes wide with the Zenith Blade 2. Mikyx has to flash away. It's another engage tool lost for G2.
I mean, it was nearly another death for Mikyx. Nearly going to be 0-8 in this game, but G2 now starting to push out. T1 did stick around a little bit long, so maybe G2, if Faker separated, feel they have a chance to go in, but I think it's still incredibly difficult because, honestly, that's only a flank angle for Faker.
Very small window there to engage. They did have a little bit of vision. A TP coming in. Zeus will be the one on the front line. Faker will be the one on the back, but Zeus immediately locked up. You can see how much damage he can tank. Faker going in with the charm, it goes wide. Zeus almost falls to the whirling death and he still has the locket. Faker dodges away from the hook. Zeus going back in, and there's your contribution. Mikyx falls, the shockwave from Caps. All it can do is buy him a second to wait. The flash charm from Faker. It's all done, it's all over. But the Nexus falling, T1 are gonna go 1-0 up.
Zeus can do no wrong. TP's in to what should have been his death, but instead it's T1 killing G2 and taking game number 1. T1 may have limped through summer, but this is Worlds and they are here to stay.
BrokenBlade and Yike trying to do anything, but they still have the impale, the suppression afterwards with the Edge of Ishtar, the chase onto Yike, the explosive cask, and as you say, Zeus godly with his placements today. The Nexus towers fall, and T1 will go 1 game away from Paris and quarterfinals. Mikyx gets a kill.
Worth. Nexus for the support
kill. The mental game. It's the mental game.
Holy moly. The god of cracking a code one on your screen. That was absolutely insane from Zeus, and G2 looks stunned.
That they do. We'll see if they can bounce back after this short break.
This is necessary.
Red Bull gives you wings.